Yes. All right. So, like I said, we are going to be talking about finding the surface area of a cylinder. Okay? Now, I just grabbed this kind of at the last second. This is a glue stick, obviously. But what shape is it? It's a cylinder. Okay? So, before, or on Friday, we were talking about finding the volume. So, how many cubic units would it take to fill up this glue stick, basically? So today, we're going to be looking instead at how to find the surface area of this object. Now, one way you can think about surface area, have you ever guys heard of nets? What? Nets? No. Like when you're talking, like a fishing net, but with 3D shapes? Okay? Well, it's basically like if we were to kind of unfold this shape, kind of take it apart and lay it flat, this is what it would look like. This middle part would be kind of rectangular, and then these bases, the circular bases, would be kind of like, so it's almost like we rolled it open and we like almost lifted the two bases up. Or if you think about, like, I'm sure you guys have taken a cardboard box apart before and lay it flat. It's kind of like that as well. Okay? Not going to talk over you. So when we're finding the surface area, it's basically, you can picture it as if we took our cylinder and we laid it flat, it's, this area that we're talking about. How much area is the surface? If you were to run your hands all over this cylinder, that's the surface that we're talking about. So we're trying to find the area, Amari, of this cylinder. Okay? All right, so I'm going to go ahead and tell you this formula is a little, it's not complicated, it's just got a little bit more to it. But I will say pretty much everyone in both of my classes so far have been able to say this formula without looking at their notes by the end of class. So we'll repeat it over and over again, so it should get pretty stuck in your head. All right, so go ahead and draw this cylinder. You should be pretty good at this since we did this on Friday. Didn't do surface area, but we were drawing cylinders. And again, it does not have to be perfect. So just like when we were solving for volume, we also need to know the radius and the height when we're looking for the surface area. And in addition to the radius and height, we have to know the diameter. But if we know the radius, can we figure out the diameter?
Yes, you just multiply times 2.
Right, we just multiply the radius times 2. If I was given the diameter and I need to find the radius, what would I do?
Divide by 2.
I would divide it by 2. Okay? So more than likely, you will be given either the radius or the diameter, but if you're given one, you can find the other. Okay? All right, so the formula to find the surface area of a cylinder, it's kind of got two parts to it. The first part is 2 times pi r squared. Raise your hand if you can tell me what that reminds you of. What other formula we've learned that makes you think of? Sebastian? Area of, not a cylinder, the area of a circle. Yeah. So why would we need to know how to find the area of a circle if we're looking at a cylinder, Sebastian?
2 circles.
Yeah, it's basically going to tell us how to find the top and the bottom. Exactly. So we've kind of got two circles. We've got one on the top and one on the bottom. Okay? And that'll tell us how to find the area of those two circles or the bases. Okay? So that tells us how to find the top and the bottom. But now we need to know how to find this middle part. And to do that, we're going to multiply pi times the diameter of one of those circles times the height of the cylinder. So you'll find both of those, and then yes, you will add them together. So this second half of the formula is going to tell us the area of that middle part of the cylinder. And that middle part is also called the lateral area. The lateral area. You might see that term on a question on your test, so I want to make, or on Aspire, so I want to make sure you know what that's referring to. Okay? So in that formula, just to recap, you'll find the area of those bases and then add it to the area of the middle. And that will give you the surface area of the entire cylinder. Okay, Charlie? Yes. Okay. All right, so just to recap, let's just write out that formula to make sure we know what each of those things mean before we move forward. So this first part, 2 times pi r squared. It'll be 2 times pi, which is what? 3.14 times r squared. What is the r? Radius. Okay? Then we're going to add to that the second part of the formula, pi times diameter times height. So what's pi?
3.4
times diameter times h, which is what?
pi.
All right. So that should explain pretty clearly what you're supposed to plug in. Okay? Are we ready to look at an example? Okay? Go ahead and draw that cylinder. Go ahead and draw that cylinder. And I haven't even been so nice as to give you the diameter. You will not always be given both. You need to be able to determine what both of them are. All right, so tell me, what is the first thing that I have always told you to do when we're solving for all these? Yeah, write the formula out. Okay? Is there anyone at this point who thinks they could say the formula without looking? Gavin?
2 times pi times radius squared plus pi times diameter.
Good. He was not looking at all. All right? So it should be 2 pi r squared plus pi times diameter times height. Good. All right, once you've written the formula down, what's the next thing that I ask you to do?
Plug in everything.
Plug in my numbers, okay? All right, so I'm going to have 2 times pi, which is what? Mm-hmm. There's a reason I keep asking. Times r squared, which is going to be what? 2 squared. Don't solve it yet. We're just plugging in the numbers. Then we're going to add to that pi, which is pi times my diameter,
Which is 4 feet.
times my height,
5.
should be 5. So your second step is just plugging everything in. Guys, this is why it's so important to do your work. In my last class, I was working with a few students in the back, and I was able to see, because she showed her work, from the very beginning, she plugged in the wrong value for the radius and the diameter. But because she showed her work, I was able to see exactly where she messed up. So if that was on a test, I would only take off a point or two for that, because she did it right. She multiplied what she had correctly. She just plugged in the wrong numbers. If you don't show me your work, though, and you just give me an answer, I can't help you in that way. So you have to make sure you're showing your work if you want any kind of partial credit, okay? So that's why I know this is a lot of steps, but I promise you it pays off, okay? Hold that thought. Okay, so now that I've plugged everything in, what do I need to do first?
Multiply. No, you know that.
I need to figure out that exponent first. So I'm going to have 2 times 3.14 times 2 squared, which is what? 4. Now, did we change anything here?
No.
Did we do anything to this right side?
No.
No, so it can stay the same. Okay? All right, now what can I do? I can multiply them together. So on this left side, I'm going to multiply 2 times 3.14 times 4. Raise your hand if you can tell me what we'll get. Christopher? 25.12. And then I need to multiply 3.14 times 4 times 5. And when I do that, what do I get, Luke? 62.8. Then what's my final step?
You have to add them together.
I have to add them together. And when I do that,
87
what do I get?
200s.
Yep. Now, raise your hand if you can tell me how I'm going to write my units. Raise your hand if you can tell me. Your mind? What squared? Feet squared. Good. Why is it squared and not cubed? Maddie? Right, and not the volume. We're not looking for volume. All right, so far, are there any questions? All right, well, let's go ahead and look at another one. We've got 2 more examples we're going to do. And then you're going to get started on your homework.
Classwork and exam review.
We have 2 more problems. Just write that down. All right, what is step 1? Writing a formula. Who wants to take a shot at saying it without looking at their paper? Christopher? Eyes over here. Eyes over here. Good. Very good. 2 pi r squared
R squared.
plus pi times diameter times height. Okay? All right. Well, step 2.
Plug in all the numbers.
Plug in all my numbers. All right. So the first half of my formula, once I plug all of my numbers in, what's it going to say, Kylie? Mm-hmm. And then the second half, when I plug everything in, it's going to say what? Michelle? Yeah. Pi times diameter times height. So pi times 8 times 7. Okay, good. All right. What's step 3?
Find the exponent.
I need to take care of the exponent. So I'm going to have 2 times 3.14 times 4 squared, which is what? 16. Now, did I do anything to this right side? No. So it's going to stay the same. Okay? What can I do next? I'm going to multiply each of those sets of numbers together. So first I'm going to multiply 2 times 3.14 times 16. What do I get, Chandler? 100.48. Then I need to multiply 3.14 times 8 times 7. When I multiply those together, what do I get, Maddie? Plus 175.84. Then what's my final step, Christopher? What's my final step? Got to add those together, right? And then when I add them together, what do I get? Will? 276.32. And what are my units? Inches squared. Okay? Any questions before we go to our last example? All right, we ready to move on? All right, last one. Go ahead and draw that cylinder. All right. I know I sound like a broken record, but I feel like repeating these things over and over again is going to help you remember them. Would you agree? I think so. I really don't care if you agree or not. I'm just trying to see what you think. All right. Step 1. Write the formula. Who wants to give it a shot this time? Preston?
2 times 3.14 equals 9.
He's right. Well, before we plug the numbers in, just tell me what the formula is. Uh-huh. Times radius
Squared
squared.
plus pi diameter.
Good. All right, now, what's my next step?
Plugging all the numbers.
I need to plug everything in. Okay? All right, so who wants to tell me when I plug everything in what the whole thing would say before I solve it? Karen? Good. Very good. Now that is probably the hardest part, just getting it set up. If you can do that, yeah, and it's not that hard, but if you can do that, you've done kind of the biggest part of the work, because now all you have to do is solve it. And we just did some like that this morning. I didn't even realize it when I picked the order of operations questions for your bell ringer, but it ties in perfectly with what we're doing now. Once you get everything plugged in, all you got to do is simplify that expression. And you guys know how to do that. Okay? So according to order of operations, remind me what we need to take care of first. The exponent. So instead of saying 2 times 3.14 times 7 squared, what's it going to say, Chandler? Good. And did we do anything to the second part yet?
No.
No. So that's going to stay the same. Okay? What do I need to do next? Anastasia? Yep. Okay, so when I multiply these first three numbers together, what do I get, Luke? Yes, 307.72. What about when I multiply the second set of numbers? What do I get when I do that? Anastasia? 395.64. And then my final step is to do what, Liam? We've got to add them together, and when I do that, what do I get? Not quite. Luke? 703.36 yards squared. Okay? All right, how are we feeling about that? Good. Any other questions before we move on? So if I were to give you a quiz on this right now, how would you do?
Hopefully you did record it.